Once a jolly swagman camped by the billabong under the shade of a coolabah tree. And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You'll come a-waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you'll come a-waltzing Matilda with me. And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You'll come a-waltzing Matilda with me.
Peter Dawson, Australia's Ambassador of Song, a tribute to one of Australia's greatest singers and composers of this century, Peter Dawson.
Young buck in his tucker bag, you'll come a-waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you'll come a-waltzing Matilda with me. And he sang as he stowed that young buck in his tucker bag, you'll come a-waltzing Matilda with me. Land of my heart, Australia, land of sweeping plains, of rugged mountain ranges, of droughts and flooding rains. I love her far horizons, I love her jewel sea, her beauty and her terror, the white brown land for me. Sword of my heart, my country, her pitiless angel sky, when sick at heart around us, we see the cattle die. But then the gray clouds gather, and we can bless again the drumming of an army, the white evoking rain. Land of my heart, Australia, land of the rainbow gold, so proud and far and far, she made us back before. Oh, many splendors, wherever I love to walk round country, my only
Australia, My Country, could well have been written with Peter Dawson in mind. So well does it epitomise the man in his whole approach to his life and work. It was performed there with the ABC Singers and Orchestra conducted by Henry Cripps and recorded when Peter was 69 years of age in 1951. The music was by Dulcie Holland and the poem by Dorothy McKellar. In that same year, another great Australian poet, Dame Mary Gilmore, then in her 86th year, wrote a letter to Peter Dawson which said, in part,
"Indeed, you are a wonder. After half a lifetime you still sing out of your heart as a bird sings, and the words of your song still matter to you. Australia had Melba, Malcolm McKicken, and it has you. And you three have carried the name of Australia everywhere. But while you have gone everywhere, the two others went, You have gone into the hearts they never reached.
This illustrious career began in 1889 when 7-year-old P.S. Dawson, boy soprano, made his stage debut in a concert at St. Peter's Town Hall, Adelaide. He was accompanied by his 13-year-old sister Elsie on the violin. He forgot his words and generally gave little indication of the musical career which lay ahead.
Peter Smith Dawson was born on the 31st of January 1882, the 8th child of 10 and the youngest boy. He attended the East Adelaide Primary School and afterwards Pulteney Grammar. One of his fellow pupils was Hans Hyson, destined to become one of Australia's greatest landscape painters. In addition to painting, Dawson's interests included fishing, cricket, boxing, swimming, running, and practical jokes. Rural pursuits included milking cows, riding horses, and horse breaking. At 16, he joined the choir at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Wakefield Street, Adelaide, after which he commenced taking formal vocal lessons. These lessons required him to ride to North Adelaide on a large white horse, and quite often he shared the same bareback ride with a younger pupil who lived nearby named Harry van der Sluis, who became legendary vaudeville and radio star Royreen Moe.
The young Dawson's singing instructor was C.J. Stevens, and under his guidance he commenced appearing at concerts in his hometown, Adelaide. A successful appearance at the Ballarat South Street competition in October 1901 was reviewed in the press as follows.
Out of 9 competitors from Melbourne, Ballarat and other Victorian towns, Mr. Peter Dawson, the only South Australian competitor, scored an easy win for his singing of The Bandit Chief, the judge remarking that he was head and shoulders above all the others who appeared.
Prior to a return engagement for the Messiah on December the 25th, 1901, the following comment appeared in the Adelaide press.
Mr. P.S. Dawson, basso, is a gentleman who has caused a great deal of excitement in musical circles during the last year. The Register considers that Mr. Dawson's voice is the finest heard in Adelaide since the 1892 visit of Signor Foley, the famous English basso. Mr. C.J. Stevens and other musical authorities are so convinced of the wonderful future in store for this vocalist that they are defraying the cost of sending him to Europe to undergo a complete course of training.
2 years after his arrival in England, Peter Dawson made his first cylinder and disc recordings. On evidence available, it seems likely that his first recording session took place in either June or July 1904 for the Edison Bell Phonograph Company. He was soon in demand by a number of companies to make 2-minute wax cylinders and single-sided discs. The initial remuneration was paltry, and the hours were long and tedious. The acoustical process for cylinders during these earliest years required constant re-recording of each title in order to produce sufficient stock for the rapidly expanding market.
It was about July or August 1904 that Peter began making tests for the Gramophone and Typewriter Company. With the encouragement of Will and Fred Geisberg, he became a constant contributor to their catalogue, which from 1909 onwards employed the famous His Master's Voice trademark. The first commercial release for this organisation, issued under the name of Peter Dawson, was this recording made on the 15th of August 1904 with Fred Geisberg at the piano. Dawson was 22 years of age.
Down on the sand hills of New Mexico,
In mid-1906, Dawson struck a particularly lean patch, and cash was running low. To bolster his dwindling finances, he appeared in the music halls, disguised as a Scottish comedian called Hector Grant, performing in a style very reminiscent of the great Harry Lauder. About 60 titles were recorded under the name of Hector Grant. We also find him recording as Will Strong, a name he used more than 50 times on disc during the early 1920s. In fact, about a quarter of his releases were issued under pseudonyms, which was a common practice at the time. He was also known as Will Danby, James Osborne, George Welsh, Victor Graham, David Peters, Charles Handy, Arthur Walpole, Walter Wentworth, Fred Davis, and Mr. Miles. We now listen to the voice of Peter Dawson in the character of Hector Grant, probably the best-known pseudonym employed by him, singing two of the songs which he composed especially for his act. The first, Lassie Dinna Sigh for Me, was recorded in 1906. The second, Sandy You're a Dandy, recorded when Dawson was 25.
Lassie Dinna Sigh for Me, sung by Hector Grant, White Record. Lassie was bidding goodbye to her boy, a soldier he was going to be. He hung his head while she piped her ear. They cared not who saw them or who passed them by. Said he, my bonny deed, you must not grieve for me, for when I return to you married we shall be. And he planted a kiss on her bonny wee brow, and whispered these words like a soldier brave and true. Lassie, dinna sigh for me, although I'm going far across the sea. I will be stanch true and will come back to you, waving the flag of victory. Lassie, dinna sigh for me, and I'll sigh for you. Though my heart is sore, you mauna grieve na mair. Oh, lassie, dinna sigh for me.
And ganging on his name, well, I done my fancy kilson as a swagger tune the street. My heart beat quick and I tried to think how the Duchess me would greet. I never done a thing like before, and just as I got near the house, some girls began to roar. Sandy, oh, you're a dandy. We love to see your airs and grace, your handsome form and smiling face. Oh, Sandy, oh, you're a dandy. You're a credit to your country and your king. As soon as I got in the castle, I stood in wonderment until the chap in buttons came and asked me what I meant. Says, I am Lord Macduff, what do you moot? Oh, you all nice? And the last I saw of him was running up the stairs for life. The next to appear upon the scene was a lady's ship, her sail. The butler nearly knocked her down as through the door he fell. I'm pleased to see you, Lord Macduff, your pardon I implore. I didn't ken you in your tune. You look so big and broad. Dandy, oh, you're a dandy. We love to see your airs and grace, your handsome form and smiling face. Dandy, oh, you're a dandy. You're a credit to your country and your king. Dandy, oh, you're a dandy. We love to see your airs and grace, your handsome form and smiling face. Dandy, oh, you're a dandy. You're a credit to your country and your king.
Early in 1909, Dawson gained recognition as an artist of the first rank when he was chosen by the Royal Opera Covent Garden to appear in The Master Singers. Despite this success, he remained suspicious of opera, claiming it was too much work for too little pay. His acceptance as a leading performer was confirmed by his regular engagements, including the Promenade concerts, Crystal Palace concerts, and chapel ballad concerts. A most diverse recording roster included Gilbert and Sullivan material, which, unfortunately, he did not appear to have performed on stage. By all accounts, he would have been ideally suited.
In the latter half of 1909, Dawson undertook a triumphant tour of his own country. It was a strenuous tour during which the party gave 81 concerts in 60 venues in 20 weeks, covering all Australian states. The venues ranged from Mount Morgan in Queensland to Coolgardie in Western Australia. Thousands of miles were travelled, many of them in Cobb & Co. horse-drawn coaches. The 27-year-old singer earned £22 per week. Even in the most outback areas, he discovered audiences well aware of his achievements. The gramophone and the phonograph had made him a household name both in the bush and in the city.
Upon his return to England, Dawson set out to broaden his repertoire. His enterprise was rewarded. Charles Tree described his repertoire as
not only remarkable, but the most extensive I've ever encountered, including the full range of operatic, choral, lieder and art songs.
It is unlikely that any singer of any period maintained a more varied and challenging stock of compositions.
Back in England, Peter Dawson took the opportunity to record again for the Gramophone Company. He had been unable to record in Australia as there were no disc recording studios established here until 1925. He was moved by the wartime hardship which he observed in England, and the following year returned to his homeland for the purpose of joining the Australian Armed Forces. This he did when he enlisted in the AIF on February the 13th, 1918. He undertook numerous patriotic concerts before embarking for the front in the latter half of 1918.
Hither we come from the southern cross, from the land where the blue gums grow. Friends, wives and sweethearts are left far behind, for we must fight old England's foe. No sturdy and back ever church as Gallipoli can turn, where her bravest sons face the fiercest guns through flames of fire and hail. We are marching, marching to glory, shouting the same old story. Forward, my boys, give them heart, shrapnel and shell, the whole bloomin' lot. We will conquer or die with the men we have got from Australia. Nothing can stop our daring boys when a stiff job lies ahead. They are eager to go and find the foe and give him a taste of lead. In Belgium, France and the Dardanelles, Australia has done her part and written a name on the scroll of the fame. The dear to old England's heart. We are marching, marching to glory, same old story. Forward, my boys, giving them heart. Shrapnel and shells of all bloom and lot. We will conquer or die with the men we have got from Australia. We are marching to glory, shouting the same old story. Forward, my boys, give it them heart. Shrapnel and shells of all bloom and lot. We will conquer or die with the men we have got from Australia.
Irrespective of who the artist is, the entertainment industry quickly forgets performers who are not regularly in public view. The same principle applies in the recording world. In 1918 and 1919, Peter Dawson made no recordings, as he had enlisted in the Australian Armed Forces. 2 years and no recordings was the basis for becoming a forgotten man. Upon his return to England, he hastily contacted the gramophone company, and by early 1920 was back in their recording studios. He quickly re-established his popularity, and by December 1923 had over 120 titles in the HMV catalogue. At the age of 43 years, Peter Dawson completed 21 years of acoustical recording and prepared to meet the challenge of technological change in the form of electrical recording. A young Ray Noble had joined the gramophone company roster of conductors and arrangers, and controlled some of the recording sessions with the baritone.
Peter Dawson had now established himself as the world's leading ballad singer, mainly through the enormous sale of his recordings. There was scarcely a home which did not have in its collection several or more of his records. In concerts, he presented varied programs with considerable emphasis on the new school of English composers, and wherever possible, he encouraged Australian composers, incorporating their works in his performances.
There's a scene that lingers in my memory of an old bush home and friends I long to see. That's why I am yearning just to be returning along the road to Gandagai. There's a track winding back to an old-fashioned shack along the road to Gandagai, where the blue gums are glowing and the marambit is flowing beneath that sunny sky, where my daddy and mother are waiting for me, and the past of my childhood once more I will see. Then no more will I roam when I'm heading right home along the road Gandagai. When I get back there, I'll be a kid again. Oh, I'll never have a thought of grief or pain. Once more I'll be playing where the guns are swinging along the road to Gandagai. There's a track winding back to an old-fashioned shack along the road to Gandagai, where the blue gums are glowing and the marambit is flowing beneath the sunny sky, where my daddy and mother childhood once more I will see. Then no more will I roam when I'm heading right home along the road yonder.
Between September 1930 and March 1931, Peter headed the bill at the London Palladium with supporting artists including Wee Georgie Wood, Cicely Courtnidge, George Burns and Gracie Allen, Billy Bennett, Flanagan and Allen, and Sophie Tucker.
During his career, Peter Dawson recorded quite a few compositions by a close friend, the Australian composer Horace Gleason. There's Something at the Yardarm was placed on disc as soon as he returned from an Aussie visit in 1931.
Something at the yardarm, swinging to and fro. There's something at the yardarm, the drums are beating slow. They swung it to the yardarm alive a while ago. They hung it to the yardarm for all the fleet to know. What does it rock so gently, tarpaulin, can you see? What does it swing so slowly above the sunlit sea? A messmate's hanging yonder upon his gallows tree. Oh, high it's hanging yonder, the corpse of mutiny. There's something at the yardarm that dips with every roll, with muffled drums a-beating instead of bells to toll. There's something at the yardarm that answers every roll. The Admiral is watching, black anger in his soul. The provost marshal's wiping the sweat from off his face. The man beside the yard rope, he staggers in his place. The captain's walking hurried and stepping out of pace. The chaplain by the cathead, he's moving part for grace. What is it in the hammock, tarpaulin, can you see? What is it in the hammock that lifts so heavily? A dead man's in his hammock for all the world to see. Between the round shot going to sleep beneath the sea. There's something at the yardarm that's hanging high and white. The middle watch that saw it is cursing in affright. There's something at the yardarm swinging all the night. There's something at the yardarm. God send the morning light.
During his tours, both within England and overseas, Peter Dawson was heard extensively on radio. On the BBC, he was accompanied by the Ray Noble Orchestra, and in Australia, as well as appearing on the ABC, he was heard on the commercial stations, in the company of such national identities as Bob Dyer, Jack Davey, and Humphrey Bishop. Recording sessions at Homebush in Sydney allowed him to further promote Australian composers.
The little paths, the lonely paths, wind through the countryside, whereby the meadows lush with grass, the little streamlets glide, and here begins a climbing way, where hill and valley meet, all tramping through the country path. I find that life is a sweet, never a fear of what is to come, and never a care have I, when I'm tramp, tramp, tramping through the countryside, neath the blue of an open sky, over the hill and down in the dale, wherever the paths may run. I'm contented tramping through the countryside, in the glow of the golden sun. Then at eventide I take my rest, while crimson glory fills the west. Never a thrill that comes in a dream can equal the joy I know when I'm tramping through the countryside, everywhere I go. A willing slave to nature's charm, this would I ever be, hearing the call of patient sheep, the songbird's melody. So when I'm tired of city life, when striving seems in vain, I take the path the country path and find my soul again. Never a fear of what is to come, and never a care have I, when I'm tramping through the countryside, neath the blue of an open sky, over the hill and down in the dale, wherever the paths may run. I'm contented tramping through the countryside, in the glow of the golden sun. Then in peace at eventide I rest, while crimson glory fills the west. Never a thrill that comes in a dream can equal the joy I know when I'm tramping through the countryside, everywhere I go.
At the age of 57, Peter Dawson commenced his 8th return trip to Australia when war was declared on Hitler. Too old for service now, but pleased to be a captive in his homeland, he was at the forefront of helping the war effort, especially in promoting war bonds. A number of his own compositions were directed to the war effort, such as the 1941 hit V for Victory.
Round the world today, everybody knows it, everybody shows it, a little symbol to repeat in every way, V for victory all the way. Say it, sing it, play it, swing it, V for victory. Tap it, talk it, on walls chalk it, V for victory. Though we've taken hard blows on the chin, 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 in the end we are bound to win, win, win. So say it, play it, sing it, swing it, V for victory. There is a lesson to be learned by us today. Let us realize it, everybody prize it. Let's keep our freedom and exploit in every way. V for victory, come what may. Say it, sing it, play it, swing it, V for victory. Tap it, talk it, on walls chalk it, V for victory. Though we've taken hard blows on the chin, 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 in the end we are bound to win, win, win. So say it, play it, sing it, swing it, V for victory. Da-da-da, 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 V for victory. Da-da-da, 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 V for victory. Though we've taken hard blows on the chin, 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 in the end we are bound to win, win, win. So say it, play it, sing it, swing it, be for victory.
Much of the time he was AWL from home, as he toured army camps singing his songs and entertaining the troops. Although he never visited the United States, he was a great favourite of American troops, who liked his voice and the kind of song he sang.
Goodbye we are saying, as dancers are swaying, the orchestra playing a tune that we love. Outside in the moonlight, this glorious June night, the grey dawn will soon light the sky up above. Old times are fleeting, at this our last meeting, two fond hearts are beating, so loving and true. Those melodies tender I always remember, when May or December bring memories of you. Let me hold you close to my heart, kiss your tears away. Ere we part, let tonight be gay, dear. Dry your tears, calm your fears, while goodbye we are saying, as dancers are swaying, the orchestra playing a tune that we love. Outside in the moonlight, this glorious June night, the grey dawn will soon light the sky up above. Our vows have been plighted, one day reunited, when wrongs have been righted, we'll start life anew. Farewells have been spoken, our wondrous dream broken. Your last kiss a token in a memory of you.
It is now my very great pleasure to present our celebrity artist of this program, the world-famous baritone, Peter Dawson. Mr. Dawson's career in the world of music is so much a matter of history that I don't think we need go over it here. But I think I'm correct, Mr. Dawson, in saying that more of your records have been sold than those of any other ballad singer?
Yes, Mr. Wood, I should think you were right. I've recorded more than 2,000 different songs, and the sales have exceeded the 12 million mark.
And placed side by side, where would those 12 million records take you?
Oh, I dare say they would take me right back to 1904, when I made the first records for the Edison Bell Company. You remember the celebrated man that used to announce there. He used to say, a song will be sung by so-and-so, Edison Bell Record.
1904.
Yes, and the following year, 1905, I signed up with his Master's Voice Company, and I've had an unbroken contract with him ever since. I also got married on that year. That's 36 years of it.
Fair enough. I believe you worked quite a bit with our producer, Humphrey Bishop.
Oh, rather, many, many times.
Let me see, Humphrey. The last time I appeared with you was at the Empire Theatre, Johannesburg, in South Africa, back in 1916.
Oh, hold on. Remember, it's too good, Peter.
Don't worry, Humphrey. I won't put you away. Oh, old days were marvelous. But recently, I had a funny experience at a concert at Mittagong in New South Wales. I forgot to pack a dress shirt. There wasn't a shop open at the time, but I got a good friend of mine to lend me one. He took the same size in collars, but I overlooked the fact that he was just the bare 6'4" tall, with shirts made to order. Anyway, I managed to tuck the shirt inside somehow and faced the audience manfully.
You must have had a most uncomfortable time, Mr. Dawson.
Oh, no, just a trifle self-conscious I was. Halfway through the night, I saw the owner of the shirt sitting in the audience. So I called out, "Well, Dave, how do you like your shirt?" And he called back, "Fine, Peter." Then, just to show the audience what I was putting up with, I shot the cuffs of my shirt in an approved fashion, and they came out a foot beyond my hands. And then I said, and what's more, there's enough left inside to pull down and make a pair of spats with. And did everyone laugh?
The trials of a concert performer, eh? Well, Mr. Dawson, it's your turn to take the stage, and I must say your shirt looks very comfortable.
Oh, I thought of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we present Peter Dawson with the Full Light Opera Company and the famous ballad, Changing of the Guard.
Have you been to London? Are you coming to London? When you come to London, I'll tell you what you must do. Walk down the streets, take in the treats, do all the usual things. And if your spouse is keen on houses, why not show her the keys? Go down the Mall to Buckingham Palace, and there you'll see the changing of the guard. Stand maybe within the palace yard. And if your plea to enter fails, you press your noses through the rails and watch from there the changing of the guard. See how they come. To beat a drum, a touch of pride and pomp on every hand, a sharp staccato word of command. Behold, behold, the changing of the guard. Fancy that's the king's home. Wonder if the king's home. Ask him if the king's home. Oh, ask the fellow yourself. The king's away at Windsor, sir, or Sandringham, I fear. But where he is, the changing guard, the very same is here. By which I mean at Buckingham Palace, where you will see the changing of the guard. Stand maybe within the palace yard, or swell the crowd around the gate that daily come to contemplate the celebrated changing of the guard. Observe the style. Rank and file, the army drum supplies a regular beat to manly tramp of marching feet. Behold, behold, the changing of the guard. Company, stand! Present arms! You should see the changing of the guard. Stand maybe within the palace yard. The royal standard in the breeze will tell you if their majesty are there to watch the changing of the guard. The columns wheel. The flash of steel, they march away, the ceremonial ends, and don't forget to tell your friends you've seen the changing of the guard.
That was an excerpt from the Show of Shows, broadcast over the AWA network in mid-September 1941. The compere was Keith Wood, and the performance was with the AWA Light Opera Company, directed by Humphrey Bishop. By July 1942, Peter Dawson was again in New Zealand. Here is a portion of a concert given at the Radio Theatre Auckland and broadcast by the New Zealand Broadcasting Commission. The accompanist is Henry Penn.
Old Henry's making a waltzing Matilda out of that. You know that? Now then, here's a song, a Kipling, a barrack room ballad. This is about the poor unfortunate chap who was thrown into the clink for being rude to the guard. It's called Cells.
I've a head like a concertina, a tongue like a button stick. I've a mouth like an old potato, and I'm more than a little bit sick. But I've had me fun of the corporal's guard, I've made the cinders fly. And I'm here in the clink for a thundering drink, and blacken the corporal's eye. With a second-hand overcoat under my head, and a beautiful view of the yard. Yes, it's packed drill for me, and a fortnight CV for drunk and resisting the guard. Mad drunk and resisting the guard. Struth, but I sucked it them hard. So it's packed drill for me, and a fortnight CV for drunk and resisting the guard. I started a canteen porter, I finished a canteen beer, but a dose of gin that a mate slipped in, was that brought me here. Was that and an extra double guard that rubbed me nose in the dirt, but I fell away with the corporal's stock and the best of the corporal's shirt. I left me cap at a public house, me boots in a public road, and Lord knows where, and I don't care, me belt and me tunic good. They'll stop me pay, they'll cut away the stripes I used to wear, but I left me mark on the corporal's face, and I think he'll keep it there. Me wife, she cries on the barrack gate, me kid in the barrack yard. It ain't that I mind the orderly room, it's that cuts so hard. But I'll take me oath before them both forever to abstain. But as sure as I'm in with mate and gin, I know I'll do it again. With a second-hand overcoat under my head, and a beautiful view of the yard. Yes, it's packed drill for me, and a fortnight CV for drunk and resisting the guard. Mad drunk and resisting the guard. Strict, but I sucked it them hard. So it's packed drill for me, and a fortnight CV for drunk and resisting the guard.
Now then, what are we going to do, Henry? I'll tell you. Oh, Waltzing Matilda, that's right, yeah.
A jolly swagman camped at the Billy Bong under the shade of a coolabah tree. And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Down came a jumbuck to drink at the Billy Bong. Up jumped the swagman and grabbed him with glee. And he sang as he shoved that jumbuck in the tucker bag. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And he sang as he shoved that jumbuck in his tucker bag. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Up rode the squatter, mounted on his thoroughbred. Up rode the troopers, 1, 2, 3. Where's that jolly jumbuck you've stowed in your tucker bag? You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Where's that jolly jumbuck you've stowed in your tucker bag? You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Up sprang the swagman, jumped into the billy bong. You'll never catch me alive, said he. And his ghost may be heard as you pass by that billy bong. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And his ghost may be heard as you pass by that billy bong. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And his ghost may be heard as you pass by that billy bong. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me.
Peter Dawson was now almost 64, an age when most of us contemplate retirement. He, however, seemed not to know the meaning of the word. His nature was to entertain, and financial necessity gave him little choice. Through the years, his generous, happy-go-lucky attitude to money resulted in dissipated funds. Whilst he never wanted, he was never a wealthy man. He had few vices and did not gamble. He was just not a natural accumulator of wealth. Unfortunately, he was often exploited.
The road is before me, the blue sky is o'er me, the wildflowers bloom on the plain. I roll up my bluey and stand out the glowy before I go tramping again. Just a rolling stone on the highway lone, from the rise to the set of the sun. I have no toll to pay, I go my peaceful way, on the crowded haunts I shun. Give me a swag and an old billy can, the road and the clear blue sky, with a dog at my call. I am a monarch of all, though a rolling stone am I. The life is enthralling, the road ever calling, the bush birds sing from above. They charm me and cheer me, there's no need to fear me. Their songs are the music I love. Just a rolling stone on a highway lone, from the rise to the set of the sun. I have no toll to pay, I go my peaceful way, on a crowded haunts I shun. Give me a swag and an old billy can, the road and a clear blue sky, with a dog at my call. I am monarch of all, oh, a road
Peter Dawson's financial situation, coupled with his love of music and people, compelled him to return to England in August 1947 to re-establish himself. The task would have tested the stamina of much younger men. Between 7th of September 1947 and the 6th of April 1948, he gave 57 concerts for a return of £3,000. Sandwiched into this hectic itinerary were BBC broadcasts and recording sessions for HMV. Critics in the UK were both delighted and amazed with the superb quality of the veteran artist's voice. He was now aged 65.
I've eaten gingerbread maids in sweat that drenched my blood. I felt the red gum timber, scarred hands on axe and plough. Now when the sun is shining with swag upon my back, I laugh at sound selectors as I pass down the track. Wailing up the Lachlan, wailing up the Lachlan, by the waters grey. Wailing up the Lachlan, wailing up the Lachlan, all of summer's day. We'll see the campfires reddened by bend or sandy bar. Wailing up the Lachlan River, where all my old mates are. Sunlight to crack the green hide, and sun to sew and reap, and sun to pink with beavers, a shearing greasy sheep. But some there are sundowners who take the easy way, no care about tomorrow if they make shift today. Wailing up the Lachlan, wailing up the Lachlan, done with axe and plough. Wailing up the Lachlan, wailing up the Lachlan, the billy's boiling now. We'll fill our pipes and yarn there and watch the world roll by. Wailing up the Lachlan, wailing up the Lachlan, under a starry sky. And yarn there and watch the world roll by. Wailing up the Lachlan River under a star.